Ladies and gentlemen, I'm recording this video in January of 2026, and we have officially reached the cutoff point where you no longer have to say Happy New Year to every single person that you have a conversation with. Also, in 2 months' time, we will begin the most exciting tournament that ever takes place in chess, and that is the Candidates, a tournament that for whatever reason we only have once every 2 years, and of course the winner of the Candidates tournament moves on to challenge for the World Chess Championship. It's the ultimate prize before the ultimate prize. The Candidates is an 8-player double round robin tournament. Actually, the history of the Candidates is extremely fascinating. It used to be knockouts, it used to be all sorts of stuff, interzonals, and so on and so forth. The most recent criteria is that 8 players qualified through a variety of ways, then they have to play each other twice, so 14 games. In recent editions, it has come down to the wire. It's been very tense up until the very end. And of course, the looming question, as always, was will Magnus Carlsen play? Will he not play? Will he defend his title? But we are far past that at this point. This year, we have a super strange field of candidates. And we've got quite an exciting field where like half the players have never even played against each other. In this video, I'm going to make a tier list. I'm going to break things down for you in a way that I hope is interesting, exciting. I will probably upset some of you. I might upset some of the players. Not trying to do that. None of this is personal, but some people are probably going to win the tournament and some people are not. So without further ado, allow me to introduce you to the 2026 Candidates field. Player 1, from Germany, Matthias Bluebaum. Player 2, from Uzbekistan, Javokhir Sindarov. Player 3, from the Netherlands, Anish Giri. Player 4, from Russia, Andrey Esipenko. Player 5, from the United States, Fabiano Caruana. Player 6, also from the United States, Hikaru Nakamura. Player 7, from India, Praggnanandhaa R. And player 8, from China, Wei Yi. A very eclectic field spanning many generations and tens of thousands of kilometers of travel on an airplane. But all of them will meet in Cyprus, of all places, a place that I'm not sure has ever hosted an ultra-elite tournament. I could be wrong, and I probably should have looked that up before I started recording, but seriously, when they announced that, I was like, what? Anyway, now, let's get into this tier list. I must say, I did not set up the categories of this tier list. I simply looked it up on the tier list website. So again, as always, I apologize if I offended anybody, but hopefully it's no hard feelings. Here are all of your players, and here are our categories. And the categories are as follows, okay? We have clear favorites, unexpected but not shocking, unlikely to win, unlikely to be last, maybe hoping for an upset or two, and only here for experience. Out of respect to all of these players, I'm not going to put anybody into only here for experience, because if anything, I would only be there for the experience. This is a field where certainly there are favorites and not favorites, but overall, it's quite a balanced situation, and I don't think we have cases like in previous years where you will clearly see 1 or 2 targets that are struggling throughout the tournament. And so let us kick things off with player 1, Matthias Bluebaum. Matthias is 28 years old, and at the time of recording this video has an international rating of 2679, making him, of course, the 8th seed, the last seed of the tournament by ratings, and he qualified to the 2026 Candidates by being the runner-up of the 2025 Grand Swiss Tournament. Undoubtedly, Matthias's best tournament of his career. He was clutch at critical moments, winning against some young juniors, and in particular, this game against Vincent Keimer, if you'll remember, and if you don't, I'll throw it up on the screen now, was an endgame, where out of nowhere, Matthias clutched it out and Vincent blundered this move, knight takes g3, a lightning bolt that not only propelled Matthias to the Candidates in all likelihood, it probably sent Vincent Keimer home for this cycle. So absolutely brutal friendly fire amongst the top German players, but Matthias was clutch, winning games not just against Vincent, but also Prague and others, en route to having the most important tournament performance of his life. Matthias is also peaking. If you look at his rating charts on the FIDE page, he's getting to 2,700 at the best time, and in 2025 he played 79 games of classical chess and gained 36 rating points. Now, here's where things get a little bit weird. Matthias has not played a classical game against nearly half the players in this field. More specifically, he's never played against Giri, he's never played against Wei Yi, and he's never played against Sindarov. He has 2 draws, and that's it against Fabi, 1 draw against Hikaru, 1 win against Pragg, and 1 win and 1 draw against Esipenko. So there is no footage to study of Bluebaum, and while they might know his openings, and he may not have as much flexibility in some of his repertoire and experience as some of the other players, he's still a very formidable opponent, and he doesn't really dip in his rating. At least he hasn't in the last half a decade. Unfortunately, none of that particularly matters. It is not a hot take at all to say that Matthias is by far the biggest question mark of the competition. He is also a severely self-deprecating individual, despite having a FIDE rating of nearly 2,700. I would dare say he's more self-deprecating than I am, and I hate myself when it comes to competitive chess. Matthias is certainly not there for the experience, but he is not going to win this tournament. It would be the odds for that. I'm not a betting man, but the odds for that would be plus multiple thousands, I would imagine. But he will, I think, have a solid result. He might finish with maybe 1 more loss than a win or 2. He could break even. The biggest question for Matthias will be the openings. At this level, you need to be flexible in a variety of systems. Matthias is a French player through and through. I don't think he's going to play the French defense every single game of the candidates, but we'll see. Regardless, I have to rank him in the yellow category of maybe hoping for an upset or 2. If he was in last place, it wouldn't be a shock. That's why he does not go up into the next one. Again, no disrespect, and if Matthias sees this, I hope he gets it's all love. Now, player number 2 is Javokhir Sindarov from Uzbekistan. He is 20 years old, and he qualified to the candidates by winning the World Cup in 2025. If the candidates started today, he would be the 6th seed with a rating of 2,726. However, this means nothing. ELO doesn't matter anymore from like 2,600 to the couple of players below Magnus Carlsen. We see consistently when these players are in a massive mix, Bluebaum can win the tournament, right? And he was 26-65 or something when that tournament took place. If Sindarov got to play 100 more games against some of the other top players, he could be 27-40, he could be 27-50. To me, Sindarov had the best 2025 campaign of anybody. First of all, he was a monster in freestyle, and just an absolute emergence, just a dominant force in that series of tournaments. He also gained most spots and most points of any of the young players, including a victory in the World Cup. This man is a world champion of a specific event, and we're not going to get into why chess has like 7 different World Cups. Sindarov is also an Olympic champion. He's won the Olympiad with Nojibek as a teammate. Sindarov is a player to watch in this field for sure. He hasn't hit a wall yet. He hasn't had a failure really in his career just yet either. Unlike Pragg, who was the same age as him, but last year, or rather last time played the candidates and then didn't do maybe as well as he thought. Shockingly enough, Sindarov also has a huge lack of experience playing the other players of this competition. So his record against Fabi is 1 draw. Against Hikaru, it's 1 draw. Against Pragg, they've played more. He has a win, 4 losses, and 3 draws. Against Esipenko, never played. Wei Yi, 2 draws. Bluebaum, never played. And against Giri, 1 draw. A note about the head-to-head with Pragg is that 2 of those games were played in the World Championship under 8 and World Championship under 10, which is crazy to say, but that was half their life ago. In modern times, actually the classical score is something like 1-1. Now, Sindarov is a total wild card. Your first candidates tournament, there is nothing quite like it. Hikaru has said as much. Last time Pragg played in the candidates, I don't think he did as well as he would have liked. And the only other players that have played in candidates before are right here, Giri and Fabi. And Giri hasn't played since the pandemic, right? He hasn't been back to the candidates since 2020, 2021. And before that, 2016. This would just be his 3rd candidates in a decade. The candidates is a very, very unique tournament. However, I predict the following. Sindarov is unexpected but not shocking. I think he has a track record in 2025 of showing extreme nerve control, going toe-to-toe with Magnus Carlsen, going toe-to-toe with Hikaru Nakamura, Fabiano, Caruana, all of the world's best players over the last few generations, and against the modern. He is here, he is now, but he is a dark horse, and he could flame out in the candidates. The candidates is where you get a huge reality check of just how good you are. But my spicy take is that Sindarov will not be expected to win the tournament, but if he wins, I'm actually not going to be so shocked. And so on that note, let's move on to player number 3 from the Netherlands, Anish Giri. Anish is 31 years old, and at the time of filming this is rated 2,760, making him the 3rd seed of the candidates. Anish also qualified to this tournament by winning one of the most important events of 2025, which was the Grand Swiss, and he won it ahead of Matthias Bluebaum. Also in 2025, Anish played 78 classical games. That includes freestyle, and he gained 29 rating points. It's kind of insane to think that Anish was rated 2730. 2730 is either the rating of a 20-year-old who is on the rise or a 35 to 40-year-old who has fallen off the top 10 or top 15 spots of the world. Generally, when you see a player go down to 2730, they're not resurging by winning the Grand Swiss and making it back to the candidates tournament. They might play more rapid and blitz. But Anish Giri also famously was ranked as high as number 2 and number 3 in the world, but that was a decade ago. Anish had an official rating of 2798, might have even been 2799. Unofficially, I think he actually touched 2800, and if he didn't, he's been clearly an elite player for many, many years. In 2016, Anish played his first candidates, and actually so did Fabi and so did Hikaru. Talk about a decade of dominance. In that event, Anish finished half a point behind 2nd place. In the campaign of 2020-2021, he ultimately ended 1 point behind 1st. Giri's head-to-head scores against the other players are quite interesting. Against Fabi, he has 5 wins and 4 losses. I'm not going to even show you the draws because there are so many over the last 10 to 15 years. It's kind of hard to keep track of all of them. Against Hikaru, he has 2 wins and 5 losses with a bajillion draws. Against Pragg, he's 4-1, and against Esipenko, he's 3-0. Against Sindarov, Wei Yi, and Bluebaum, Anish has either played almost no games or has just 1 or 2 draws. So as always, we have about 3 or 4 players in this event that have just never played a classical game against some of the other players. For sure, Giri, Fabi, and Hikaru have by far the most experience in this competition, and they've also had by far the most experience playing against one another. They have like 40 or 50 classical games against each other for the last 10, 15 years. Now it has come time to rank Anish Giri in the candidates tournament. So what I didn't mention when I said 2016, the meme about Anish Giri being a draw machine, drawing all his games, that was born in the 2016 candidates. In that tournament, he played a lot of exciting chess, just the games always somehow found a way to either not be won or lost by him or his opponent, and he ended with 14 draws. Anish Giri finds himself in the same generation as Fabi and frankly also as Hikaru, but Hikaru is obviously the oldest player in the tournament. Now, in many ways, Anish could be in the unexpected but not shocking category, but I have to pick a young player from there, and I just don't think we can keep going back to the 30-plus club to have a breakthrough. I think between Esipenko, between Pragg, between Wei Yi, between even Bluebaum, between Sindarov, and between the old guard, I don't think Anish is a clear favorite, and I can't say that he would be unexpected but not shocking. I actually think we have to put him in the 3rd category because Anish would need to score 8.5 or 9 points to win this tournament, which would mean he would need to outplay, outcalculate, and have stronger nerves over 14 rounds against the rest of the field. And I just somehow doubt that with the existence of Fabiano, Caruana, with the existence of Hikaru, and with the existence of some of the other players. If he pulled it off, I actually would be shocked. So, you know, that's not a category here, and I don't know, maybe there should be a category. Unexpected but shocking. I don't know, maybe that should be it. But I do think Anish will probably get 3rd or 4th in this tournament. and he will have a good event, all things considered, but I don't think he's going to win it. Player number 4 is from Russia, and his name is Andrey Esipenko. And at the time of recording this is the 7th seed of this tournament, actually rated below 2,700 of 2,698. Several years ago, he was rated something like 2,730, so it's quite strange to see Andrey at this rating. In fact, he was rated 2,660 something like 1.5 years ago, clearly in somewhat of a slump. And he made it into the candidates tournament by finishing in 3rd place in the 2025 World Cup, winning the bronze medal match against Nojibek Yakoboyev. Fun fact, or maybe not so fun. If Andrey had not qualified to the candidates, this would have been the first candidates tournament ever without a representative from Russia. That's pretty crazy. So he just got in, and that means that there's an opportunity, just like there was for Yan Nepomniachtchi over the last several candidates, to potentially qualify to the World Championship and win it. Now, Andrey has been a perennial 2,700 for the last half a decade. There's a famous clip of him on YouTube defeating Magnus Carlsen at the Tata Steel tournament, clearly showing he has the skills and the nerves to win on the biggest stage. Andrey is another one of these players who is obviously capable of beating anybody in this field, but is he capable of winning the tournament after 14 rounds is a whole nother story. Against the field, he has 3 draws against Fabi, 2 losses and 3 draws against Hikaru. He's won 1-1 against Prague. He has never played Sindarov. He's won 2-3 against Wei Yi. He's played twice against Bluebaum, a loss and a draw. And he has a head-to-head score with Giri of no wins, 3 losses, and 2 draws. The thing about Andrey in this tournament is there are simply too many people I can put in front of him to win it or just score better. I wouldn't be shocked if Andrey got 5th place or 4th place, but winning this tournament against this field, when you do have a track record of playing them, but not necessarily beating them in head-to-head scores, that's difficult. And Andrey does not have as much experience in the freestyle tournaments. He does not have as much experience with tournament invitations, given that he's from Russia. He's generally been a bit insulated, and the Russian players are kind of just playing tournaments against each other for the most part, and are playing in the occasional Grand Swiss or World Cup or World Rapid and Blitz. So it will be challenging for Andrey. Now, he does have a good team. He certainly has good trainings, partners, but I mean, again, I would be shocked, and I do think he will finish maybe 5th place. I don't necessarily think he's going to have a bad tournament, but to win this tournament is a whole separate thing. You need to have experience, you need to be clutch, you need to have excellent opening preparation, you need to understand the mindset and the personality of the players that you are playing against, and and there has to be an it factor. And with Sindarov, the reason I put him above everybody is because for me right now, this is my hot take, he has the it factor. Now we move on to a very fascinating group of players. Number 5, Fabiano Caruana, 33 years old, and his current rating is 2,795. That would make Fabi the 2nd seed in the tournament. However, as far as experience, it's not even close. This is Fabiano's 6th candidates tournament. In 2016, he lost a crucial game to Karyakin, which put him in 2nd place instead of 1st. In 2018, he won the candidates. In 2020, 2021, he did okay, but to me, that tournament is really random because of the pandemic and the fact that they had to wait for a year, so I kind of throw that one off to the side. In 2022, Fabi didn't do as well as he would have hoped, and in 2024, Fabi was a few accurate moves away from tying for 1st and playing a playoff. If Fabi had won against Nepo in that crucial final round where the two of them were just beside themselves afterwards, there was a chance that he could have beaten Gukesh in the playoff, and he would literally be the reigning world champion right now. Fabi's experience is second to none, and there are literally 3 or 4 moves over the course of his career that could have changed everything. He's the only player not to lose a single game to Magnus Carlsen in a world championship match, and he's also the only player to be even remotely close to Magnus in rating over the course of his reign. He is the owner of probably the most impressive winning streak in chess. Of course, I'm talking about the 2014 Sinquefield Cup, when he literally won every single game against every single person that he played in the first half of the tournament. But here's where things get a little interesting. Fabi is 9-13 against Hikaru, and recently Hikaru has somewhat of a 5 or 6 game classical winning streak against him. Fabi is also 4-5 against Anish Giri. He's 2-2 against Pragg, and he's 4-0 against Wei Yi. But he doesn't have a win against any of the other players because he hasn't really played them much. And yet, I think it would be insane not to list Fabiano Caruana as the clear favorite to win this tournament. He has the most experience of over-the-board chess over the last 10 years. He is touted by Magnus Carlsen himself as clearly the second best chess player in the world. You can confirm that in this interview that I did with Magnus. Who do you think is the second best chess player in the world?
Yeah, I think Fabiano Caruana is the second best player.
And so I don't think this will come as a surprise to anybody. And anybody that builds a candidates tier list for 2026 will likely have a similar guess unless one of the players does it. I think Fabiano Caruana is a clear favorite to win this tournament. As we know, that doesn't always work out. 14 games, ultra high stakes, critical decisions, elevated polls going down the line. Fabi could have been the world champion right now. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's Gukesh. He didn't win the game against Nepo. He finished in second place. But I would still put my money on Fabi winning this candidates. We move on now to player number 6, the dinosaur of the competition, Hikaru Nakamura. 38 years old, currently rated 2,810, making him the number 2 ranked player in the world. Hikaru qualified to this candidates by doing something hilarious. He took the rating spot. Every single candidate cycle, there is a spot that goes to the person who has the highest rating either on a day or after like a 9-month average or something along those lines. But you have to play a minimum number of games because that shows that you were active. Well, Hikaru did. He played a certain number of games. If you remember, he did a world tour. He went to Canada, he became the Louisiana and Iowa state champion, and so on and so forth. In fact, he did so much that FIDE had to issue some ridiculous rule where now you can't farm rating points off of these local tournaments by playing people who are 1,000 points lower than you. That wasn't Hikaru's intention, though. His intention was just simply to qualify to the candidates, which he did. This will be Hikaru's 4th candidates, making him the 2nd most experienced player in the field, in particular in this competition. He also played in 2016. It was a big tie in that tournament. Technically, Hikaru got second to last, but as we see from the standings page, he could have tied for a middle of the spot pack. He did talk about having a lot of nerves and a lot of pressure back then because streaming and content creation wasn't a thing. And playing chess at the ultra elite level was tiring, emotionally draining, and not particularly rewarding unless you win all of the most important competitions. It was very, very stressful for him. He then came back to play in 2022 in Madrid, and in the last round, could have won and gotten second place. And that was important because Magnus Carlsen wasn't defending his title. Ultimately, the Madrid candidates was Nepo and Ding, and they played a world championship. So Hikaru was also a game away in 2022, and guess what? Technically, he was a game away in 2024. In the last round, he was playing against Gukesh. Had he beaten Gukesh, he would have won the candidates, just like Fabi against Nepo. So 2024 could have also been a very, very different year. 2022 as well. But ultimately, Hikaru came up short in the last round of 2 back-to-back candidates tournaments. Also in 2024, for whatever reason, Vidit Gujarati was just like his nemesis. He beat him twice. Vidit beat him in both games that they played. He wasn't able to score half a point against Vidit. So to Hikaru's happiness, Vidit is probably not a threat anymore, whether it's, emotional, spiritual, or whatever, because he's not in this candidates tournament. Hikaru has an insane track record against this field. I've already rattled off a few of these. He's 13-9 against Fabi, including a recent winning streak of some 6 games. He's 4-0 against Pragg. He's 2-0 against Esipenko, and he's 5-2 against Giri, without having played any of the other players enough or simply making draws. To me, if there was a category between red and orange, that is where I would put Hikaru. because he would be far, far less shocking of a winner than Sindarov. Do I think he is a clear favorite? It's close. Ultimately, it's going to be probably these two guys up here. I would give Hikaru like 70% to this one and 30% to this one. And the only question mark is, at what point does age begin to play a role when you contend against these monsters and a resurgence of Anish Giri? That's really the question. Like, can Hikaru contend for half a point or 1 point at second place in the candidates until he's like 44? Who knows? Will having played all those like tournaments against the Louisianans and the Iowans and the Canadians affected Hikaru, whereas everybody generally has played more classical against other 2700s? I don't know. But 2 years in a row, Hikaru was a game away from being the candidates champion. In fact, the last two candidates, he did better than Fabi. So to me, you have to put him as a clear contender for a first or second place finish. Our penultimate player is Praggnanandhaa R, the lone representative from India in this tournament. Both him and Sindarov are the youngest players in the competition. His current rating is 2,758. He is the 4th seed of the tournament, and he qualified to this competition by winning the FIDE circuit, which is basically a calendar-long year calculation of winning elite tournaments. Pragg is probably the second strongest Indian junior if you had to give number 1 to the world champion Gukesh himself. But it is very, very close. If you ran 100 games between Erigaisi, Pragg, and Gukesh in classical Rapid and Blitz, I've got absolutely no idea what the score would be. Pragg has been touted by players like Carlsen and, frankly, even Vishy Anand himself as the most talented young player from India right now and most consistent. Erigaisi just missed out on this candidates, but Pragg is back for a second edition after playing last year. Now, here are the standings from the 2024 candidates. This one's a little deceiving. Pragg got 5th out of 8, which on the surface is like, oh man, he did so badly. Not quite. Because if you look, Gukesh won the candidates, right? He won the candidates. Nothing to say there. But the next 3 were all kind of in contention for a spot. And so when you look at it that way, Pragg did better than the bottom half and was just not in contention to be a champion. 1 or 2 more games go a slightly different direction, he might be in 2nd or 3rd place. So with that experience and with a clear record of being quite consistent, Pragg is probably somebody that you should fear in this tournament. However, I think something that might hold him back is that he might be too risk-prone. And I'm curious which type of Pragg is going to show up for this tournament. In the last one, he played a lot of all sorts of crazy opening ideas. And so if he's a little bit too much of a gunslinger in the 2026 candidates, it could come back to bite. There's a lot of very hungry, very solid players and very experienced players lurking around, and Pragg will have to pick his chances and pick the openings and pick the opponent for where he wants to take a risk. For Pragg, I think I would rank him at the kind of similar to Hikaru, split between these two. If Pragg won the candidates, I probably would be less shocked than normal, but it would be very close with Sindarov. Now, I think Pragg is probably going to finish in something like 3rd. That's what I would have to say. But I have to put these guys up here, right? I have to put them together. I don't think it's necessarily a first place finish for these two. In fact, I would probably swap Sindarov to 2nd. It would be less shocking for me if Pragg became the candidates champion than if Sindarov did it. But I just don't know. Sindarov has yet to experience a major career failure, or let's say shortcoming. He's clearly on the rise, and Pragg knows what it takes. And if Pragg can use that experience to propel him to a championship, it's going to be a great time for him. And so that brings us to the last person of this candidates tier list, and that is Wei Yi. 26 years old, with a current rating of 2,754, making him the 5th seed in this tournament. And he qualified to the candidates by being the runner-up of the 2025 World Cup. Now, just so you know, Wei Yi has had like 2 chess careers in one. He was already one of the most accomplished grandmasters on planet Earth by 2015. And in 2015, he was 15. He was 15, 16 years old. This man is born in 1999. He is the youngest ever player to be 2,600 at the time that he did it and 2,700 at the time that he did it. He was also an Olympic champion with China. Ding Liren 10 years ago said, "It's only a matter of time before Wei Yi moves past me in the rankings." Wei Yi is a monster. And during the pandemic, he went back to college. So he basically just was off the grid in his early 20s getting an education. He comes back and immediately wins the Tata Steel tournament. He has been 2,700 to 2,750 for 10 years. So you talk about a playing career that's just like unbelievable. You're looking at one. Against Fabi, he has his worst record, 0-4. But he doesn't have a win or a loss against anybody else in this tournament except Esipenko and Giri. He's 2-1 against Esipenko and he's 1-0 against Giri. He hasn't won or lost against anybody else in the tournament, just draws. And in that case, like 2 or 3 of them over the course of his career. Wei Yi also doesn't play too much of the online stuff. He's very good at Rapid and Blitz. He's certainly one of the best Rapid and Blitz players in the world as well. But he is by far the biggest wild card in this tournament. Sindarov is young, so he could either be incredibly strong and continue the momentum, or he could flame out and get 7th place. I have absolutely no clue how Wei Yi is going to do in this tournament. But I will say this. I think Wei Yi probably doesn't have the experience and the play style to score 9 points. Wei Yi is incredibly strong, but incredibly solid. One thing about him is that he almost never loses. The problem with almost never losing is that you almost never win at this level. He's gonna have to take risk. I think the candidates is very much about getting out of your comfort zone. Pragg is very comfortable doing that, and I think actually so is Sindarov. So is Hikaru. Hikaru plays all sorts of ridiculous openings in these tournaments, like the Mirror Queen's Gambits and so on. So I actually think Wei Yi has to go in the 3rd category. Will he do better than Anish Giri? Probably not. Will he do better than Esipenko? Yes, in all likelihood. If I had to guess, I don't think Wei Yi will win the tournament. I expect also maybe a 3rd, 4th place tie. I expect probably all 5 of these guys, all of them, Pragg, Sindarov, Giri, Wei Yi, to get around 3rd, 4th, 5th. There could be a tie in there. I don't think anybody's going to have like a drastically better tournament than anybody else. If I had to swap anything that I did here, or if I had to give you a hot take, I think Esipenko and Bluebaum probably have the highest chances, or maybe Wei Yi and Esipenko have the highest chances of joining Bluebaum and having a tough tournament. And Giri could win the tournament. He could win the tournament, but it is a massive question mark. But I think Anish is probably going to be tied 3rd, 4th, 5th with a couple of these other players, if I had to guess. But we'll see. We'll see. I hope you enjoyed my video. I hope you enjoyed the breakdown. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I don't think this tier list is much of a hot take, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I don't think anybody's there for the experience. I also don't think Bluebaum, if he gets last place, is going to do terribly. I don't think he's going to get like 4 out of 14. Wouldn't be shocked if he got 5.5 or even 6. With that, appreciate your feedback in the comments, and get out of here.